Welcome back, gang. You know what section this is? This is section 9. You know what lecture this is? 27. You know how many sections we have? You know how many lectures we have? That's right. We have 9 sections and 27 lectures. This is the final one. This is our wrap-up. How crazy is that? I've had a great time. I hope you have too. In this lecture, I'd like to put a bow around the whole thing and kind of summarize what we've covered and hopefully how it all fits together. All right. If you'll recall, way back in our first real section, we covered relational theory. Started with some common terminology. We learned some simple stuff back then. It was what's a table? What's an entity? What's a column? What's a row? What's a relationship? Oh, it's all good stuff. We then spent 2 lectures in that section discussing the normalization process. First, we looked at how one interviews the data to actually learn enough about the business enterprise to start normalizing the data. And then in that second lecture, we actually went from 0NF up through BC 3NF. Pretty fun stuff. If you'll recall, we then concluded that section with a brief discussion of ER diagrams and how one graphically documents their design through the ER diagram process. It's really the method by which we can take our information and go back to the data owners and validate that our design ideas are correct. We really can't do that with normalization documentation because it's just too scary for them. If you'll recall, we then moved on to a section on data definition language, DDL. We learned how to drop and cascade a dropping user. We learned how to create a user. We learned about granting privileges and granting roles, how we can grant those with admin. Typical scenario is grant DBA with admin to the owner of the schema such that they can have full access rights. That's pretty standard stuff. We then learned how to create some tables and ultimately, remember we learned 2 methods there by which to include our PK and FK definitions either inline or upon the conclusion of the entire comma-separated list of fields. Alternatively, again, you can alter the table with the alter table command and define your primary keys and foreign keys that way. Many different ways to skin that cat. We concluded that section with the create sequence and create trigger commands. We didn't really get into create trigger very deeply. At that point, we were really much more interested in the sequencers. All right, that was our DDL section. Our next section was DML, data manipulation languages. Not surprisingly, we started with the delete command to ensure that all of our tables were empty before we started doing anything with them. We compared the delete with the truncate. Remember, there's a good deal of difference with respect to performance because the delete command requires that it realize all of the constraints on a table associated with each row deletion. Versus a truncate, you need to disable all those constraints, and you're getting into the realm of being dangerous to yourself. We next looked at the insert command, both with values as well as with a select statement. And then we culminated our DML section with a look at the update command. All really pretty straightforward stuff. Our next section was then our big section on queries. We had a lot of work on the select statement is the short answer because there's a lot there to cover. We spent some time on single table selects, wherein we focused on the where predicate, the order by clause, and also some real simple functions, as well as we introduced ourselves to concepts like row ID, row num, and the dual table. We then moved on to multi-table selects, where we learned how to join these guys, both inner and outer joins, as well as with single or compound joined columns. Pretty cool stuff in general, and really the essence of how you're going to make a living going forward with SQL. Your ability to join tables, particularly inner joins, are going to be the essence of your success. All right, our next lecture was on subqueries. We did all combinations of single row and multi-row subqueries, as well as correlated and uncorrelated. Remember, be cautious of those multi-row subqueries, particularly of the correlated type, as the correlated subqueries need to realize that subquery for every row in the outer query. You can get into pretty bad performance and SGA issues if you let those correlated subqueries get out of hand. Just be cautious with them. And we culminated then our queries section with one on what I referred to as advanced queries, the analytical functions, cubes, pivot tables, stuff like that. It's not stuff you use on a regular basis, but it's out there and you need to be aware of it. Next section was PL/SQL, the procedural language extensions to SQL available within Oracle. Very, very powerful tool. And a reminder there as well that I'll be giving another full course on this later in 2017 because it's so important and it's such a big topic area. If you'll recall, we covered functions, procedures, triggers, and packages. Functions, of course, return a single SQL data type and can serve as part of a select statement and can also be the right-hand side of an assignment statement. Compared to a procedure, which has in-out parameters but cannot serve as the right-hand side of an assignment, nor can it serve in a select statement, but is the common method by which you as programmers are going to get data out of the database. You're going to ping a procedure or cursor in a procedure. We spent just a few minutes on triggers. Keep them simple, guys. Beware the mutating trigger monster. He will come and bite you, and once he has, you got a mess. You got to tear it all apart and put it back together again the right way, and that's with procedures and functions. Finally, again, very briefly, we touched on some pseudocode package, just getting the real fundamental feels for it. Again, that's an entire course in and of itself, and I don't want to go there without some more time. We culminated the course with a section on what I labeled less frequently encountered Oracle constructs. They're important, but they're not the kind you see on a day-to-day basis. We started with a look at Oracle's object relational model, user-defined types, real straightforward for those of you who do object-oriented programming. It's second nature. We moved then on to a lecture on collections. Remember our discussion of V-arrays, nested tables. Interesting stuff, but not stuff you're going to hit on a day-to-day basis. Our next section was on large objects. Clobs and blobs, get them out of there as far as I'm concerned. They don't belong. B-file is perfectly reasonable implementation, but remember it does use that goofy Oracle directory object, which is case sensitive. Not real flexible, guys. Poor implementation as far as I'm concerned, but one that I'm sure will be refined as it moves forward. Our next lecture was on an important topic, and that's XML, hugely important method for distributing data, particularly when that data can be a little stale. Also an important element when we're talking about synchronizing geographically dispersed databases. A great methodology and good implementation, although it is dependent on the B tree, but again, or a B file rather. But again, once you know the tricks there, you can get around it. Finally, we culminated with a pair of lectures which covered the area of performance. Now, 10 years ago, performance, we'd have spent half this course on it. Today, it's not as important with the availability of hardware as it is. Given that, it doesn't give you an excuse for being a poor programmer. We still need to pool our connections. We still need to bind all our variables. No dynamic SQL, please. In addition, remember our discussion of views. Use of views, particularly ones with multiple joins and or aggregates, are going to get you in trouble. Yes, they, if you will, mask complexities, but that's actually the issue, because then all of a sudden junior programmers start joining these things together and the optimizer's forced to just throw its hands up in the air and go, I have no idea what you're trying to do here, and runs away and gives you table scans. Similarly, the order by and group by clauses can be problematic because those both require sorting of the information in main memory. If you've got 2 million rows in there and you're sharing SGA with everybody else, and you're doing a sort on that thing, all of a sudden everybody else is slowed to a crawl. Finally, and probably most importantly, beware that correlated subquery. That's the one that's going to get you. That's the one you're going to code. Run a test on that thing, and all of a sudden 10 minutes later you're calling a DBA or someone like myself and going, how do I stop this thing, because it's totally out of control and I don't know what to do. All right, that's performance. I had great fun. I hope you did. I know it was a great deal of information to cover in a very short amount of time, so again, please practice, 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 practice. Review the resource materials again and again and again, and view the videos again and again and again. You have methods by which you can communicate with me. You've seen my email in this. digitalmiddleage.com has contact information for me. Please reach out if you've got questions, and I'd love to be as much assistance as possible. In addition, please be looking for my future courses. As I've mentioned several times, there's going to be one on XML in the very near future, another one on PL, SQL, and there'll be a third one on physical database design constructs, all of which should come out in 2017. So I'll see inside of those, I hope, as well. In the interim, you know what? Let's all go out and have some fun, but learn something new every day. I enjoyed things.